Greetings, greetings, fellow travelers. Here we are again on my podcast, in my world, using my voice. Here I am, yes, Sophie's voice. Welcome. Sorry about the noisy chair. Yes, here we are in Adelaide. Beautiful spring day today. It's such a nice feeling when you can walk around in bare feet and pick flowers. It's very nice. Had a nice lay on the grass this afternoon, stared into the sky, looking up into. Do you ever stare into the sky and see the little dancing little lights that are somewhere between you and the sky? It's a very curious thing. If you haven't noticed it, go and lie down on the grass and have a look at the sky. And there's little, like as if they're little lights, and they're just dancing. There's like all over the place, all over your eyes. It's very cool. So I don't know what they are, but they seem to be coming from inside you, not in the sky. So anyway, had a lovely day today, but we had some very chilly weather last year. We had a bit of a snap freeze. We had lots of ice up in the hills and a bit of snow. So yes, we'll go back and forth, I think, until we get to the really hot weather in summer, which is not too far off. So podcast number 38. I just wanted to say on the top, for anyone who's had any sort of interest in the whole singing bowl saga and Catherine and everything, and Catherine didn't come in and she normally does the third Tuesday of the month. And we didn't do it this month because it all got a bit intense, and it was sort of triggering me a bit, the whole thing, because she didn't want to come on and use the singing bowl. But we both sort of processed it a bit, and we both had a bit of a chat, and it was never bad between us. There was never any bad feeling between us, so it wasn't like that at all. But yeah, hopefully we'll organise for her to come on again soon, and she can talk a bit about what her journey has been with that, and I might even not use the singing bowl for her episode to honour her. But we'll talk about all that when she comes on. Hopefully she'll come on. Come on, Catherine. We're going to have a talk about this. It's been very interesting and informative. So, all right. So this week I was just going to see if I could have a little bit of a chat about, I've been on Facebook, I've been sharing a bit. Just about every night I go on YouTube and I check out videos and I check out what's going on in the world. And since I've come around to sort of seeing Gaza from a different perspective and what's happening in Palestine and Israel, it's very distressing once you get, so like there's all these different information bubbles and that's what's going on in the world at the moment. So people are getting certain kind of information just in the bubble that they're in. And once people have been convinced that Israel is, maybe you've got inheritance or whatever connected to Israel, but a lot of the people I know that are favouring Israel, it's because they, actually I don't know, I haven't really had many conversations with many Christian Zionist types, but I know that most of the people that I would be going to church with would be, if that makes sense. I haven't been really going to church lately, so I'm not really connected in, but I know that a lot of the circles I was moving in, it was moving that way. There was this kind of aura around the idea of the modern state of Israel being somehow biblical Israel, and that there was this idea of honouring Israel that's come through dispensationalism. And I didn't take too much notice of it for a while because I was fascinated with Jewish culture as well, and I'm always studying, looking into the Hebrew words and culture, and like looking deeply into ideas around the temple, and in as much as it informs my understanding of who Christ is and what God spoke through that Jewish culture and has brought into the world, and how it's just a rich source of understanding and beautiful mystery and wonder, and it's very cool. So I was never felt negative about Israel, but I'd never really looked into what was happening in the world currently very deeply. Every time I'd gone to have a look, it had been like you look over one side and they're saying one thing, and then you look over the other side and they're saying something else, and I just found it very hard to work out what was going on. But I think like a lot of people who maybe were in that boat, it's got so intense now that unless you're really determined to stay in the Israel bubble, you can't help but see that it's horrific what's going on. It's just so awful. It's just beyond comprehension, like the most gruesome, cold-blooded behavior of a powerful nation against a weak nation, in broad daylight, with respectable, a lot of Christian people cheering it on. And it's like they can't understand what they're doing. It's just insane. So it's very distressing. And, Shirley and I have had a bit of back and forth. Shirley, who came on last week, and I hope maybe we can talk a bit about it on a podcast one day, because she's leaning more towards the Israel side now. She used to be more see more the Palestinian point of view. But she's got a nuanced position, and she's a great person to be able to talk and not get personal and emotional about. But I did find that I was posting all these things about it because I had this feeling like I'd see things and it's just like, oh, it's so obvious that there's something really corrupt going on. And so I post things hoping that people would see it, and I have little discussions and back and forth on comment sections, particularly these Christian ones that are putting up these full-on pro-Israel things, and I just find it unbelievable. But anyway, it's all about perspective, isn't it, and what information you're getting. But so yeah, I think it's good to have discussion about these things and good to be aware of it. But I had this realization because I posted something that I knew was controversial to another degree, and it's more about the concept of there being sort of like the mother of all conspiracies is the idea, or the mother of all conspiracy theories is the idea that there is a cabal of usually seen as Zionist individuals, very high up, very wealthy, who have been had a vision to infiltrate and control the world for a long time, and so in a way that kind of idea and the stuff I know about that informs me when I start to see what Israel's doing now. It's like it's a revealing of something that is not what Christians think it is. So what am I saying? I can't remember my train of thought, but so I put up something controversial that, if you don't know all my train of thought and what I'm saying, that it's got nothing to do with being against Jewish people, that I know that people who are Jewish or feeling like siding with the Jews and feeling protective of the Jews, that anything like that just feeds into this dichotomy, to this polarization that's going on. And we've seen it over the last few years, particularly, it's probably been going on in our culture for a long time, but it just seems to be so sharpened now since COVID. This information bubble culture where people are getting into their information bubbles and fighting with people in other information bubbles. And because in their bubble, they've got a certain kind of information, and they're all, everyone that's in that bubble are confirming to each other, and the algorithm's only giving them information that confirms their position. And so the fighting with the other people is so passionate, and so why can't you see? It's so obvious that this is true, and that you're, for instance, that you're supporting terrorists that chop off babies' heads, and it's so horrific. And then the other people are saying, this government is starving the people of Gaza, and can't you see? Anyway, so there's this sort of back and forth, and there's this whole left-right thing, and I just feel that it's artificial, and that it feels like my spiritual journey has been one of getting a clear picture that we are all made up of parts, and that if we're not in proper communication with the different parts of ourselves, it's sort of like the outer world and the inner world kind of relate to each other, in that that for instance, in your information bubble, the type of information you're getting is going to be relating to a part of yourself, and the part that other people are, the information they're getting is It doesn't quite ring true. But let's say the left-right thing, for instance, just to make it simpler for the demonstration, which is that you've got sorry, my chair. You've got your left-right paradigm, right? So you've got people on the left who are progressive, who are more probably intellectual, you might say, more educated. They're less religious, they're not conservative, they're progressive. And then you got your right, which is more conservative, obviously, individualistic, nationalistic, sort of more to do with emotion and the soul and religion and protecting yourself and your family. So both of those dimensions are part of a whole. So if we favor one side or the other within our own soul, then we're going to be in bad relationship with the other part, which creates the whole, because everything creates balance and stops things from going off track by having that balance with the other side being connected. And so if you externalize that, then it actually, I believe, causes splits within yourself. And so I believe that the way to heal the world, to heal everything, to stop all this, is not so much the activism and the trying to change people's opinion, but it's the healing of your own soul and letting God do that work to connect everything up, to connect you up properly with God, with the earth, with the left, the right, the up, the down, the in, the out, to have it all connected properly and in good relationship, so everything's playing its right role, and that there is respect and love for all the parts, and then there's the flow of God's life and love through the whole thing. And so that's really been my spiritual journey, is being able to see these things, and it's been a huge kind of repairing, like a repair work that God's done in my soul. And all along the way, I feel like I've been learning a lot about that, about how the soul is structured and what goes wrong and how things get out of their right order. So, but then when I went down the rabbit hole during COVID, and that was a whole, like a journey of discovery. It wasn't just all the information that I was discovering about what a lot of hidden layers of our world and our society that if you go down the rabbit hole you discover, and it really changes your whole perspective on reality. But it was also how you deal with that. Like, so a lot of people talk about getting red pilled and then getting black pilled. So it's like you get the red pill, you accept the red pill, which is, all right, I will see the reality no matter how awful it is. And then once you've taken that and you see, it's easy to get black pilled, they call it, where you just feel so bleak and so dark. And I'll just touch on also that, like this, we've had an awful situation in Australia, New South Wales, New South Wales, someone who's obviously gone down that rabbit hole and gone down this particular dimension of it, which is this whole kind of wacky legal stuff. Sorry, I shouldn't say wacky. I don't know. It just never appealed to me. I was a little bit interested in the can't remember where it's called. There's an old English law from 16 something. Oh, what's it called? I can't remember it anymore. But anyway, I'll write it in the comments if I remember it. It's a little bit interesting, and that for a while there I was thinking, well, maybe the way through is to understand the law and to do things through the system, through law, or I don't know. But anyway, some people get in that black pill state and they start to see the powers of the world, of our culture, of our society as being the enemy. And I mean, I don't know the details of what's happened with that guy, and a lot of people from the freedom movement side of things are obviously proposing the idea that it's not as simple. I mean, nothing's as simple as it seems, is it? There's always going to be layers, but, there's this idea that guy has been tormented by police. But it sounds like maybe he people can get a bee in their bonnet about these legal things and think that the way through is to fight the system and it sounds like he's one of those, that he's fought the system. He's psychologically got into a really bad place, and now he's committed murder. Which, someone was saying he's this lovely Christian family guy. Well, I would propose that as a Christian, you've lost your way if you haven't understood the message of the Savior, which is not to fight the system. That's not what Jesus did. Jesus stood his ground against a corrupt system, and he upset the system, but he didn't fight it. He didn't try to bring it down. He just sort of walked into it. He just kept walking, and all their usual tactics to destroy a person didn't work on him, but he allowed himself to come under their control, because I think he wanted to demonstrate to us that the kingdom of God is not about beating them. It's about transcending them, and that there's a different realm that he wants us to mature into and go beyond. And so that's kind of what happened to me when I, took the red pill, as it were, and then found yourself in black pill land. It's hard not to. You find yourself in this horrible, bleak picture of reality. You feel very helpless. You can't change anything. You can't do anything about it. You feel trapped. It's like the walls are closing in. They're going to have these smart cities. They're going to have everything surveilled. There's going to be the internet of bodies. They're going to put things in your body. They're going to have the internet over everything. And then connect that to this idea of, from my background, I'm in a different position now, but at the beginning of when I was red pilled, the idea of the mark of the beast and the book of Revelations really adds so many more dimensions to that pressure and that feeling of horror of what's going on. And the idea at some point was the idea that the vaccine could even be the mark of the beast. I think a lot of people were feeling that, and that it was integrating you into their system. And so it's pretty scary place. And so during that journey, I came to a realization that this is taking me further away from God, that the only power I have in any situation is to be in proper connection with God, because God is the highest authority above all authorities. Like, he's not subject to these powerful people in the world. So whatever God is and wherever God is and whatever heaven is not subject to this. So the idea, if Jesus is ushering us in, wants us to come into the kingdom of God, then that's a kingdom that is not under that authority. And so that's a whole discussion, because what does that look like? Because you're still here in the world. So it's like Jesus said, you're in the world, but you're not of the world. So I feel like a lot of people have been tricked because of this whole revelation idea, and the idea that this new world order is the system of the mark of the beast, and you've got to be ready to, I don't know what, it leaves you in a very hopeless position, and just bracing yourself for what the terrible stuff that's going to happen. So I realized that that's not God. God doesn't operate like that. Whatever's happening on the world, God has an answer. God has all power. God has peace and love and joy. That is constant. That is God's nature. That is God's character. And so that made me realize. So I'd already been doing the sort of integrating and the wholeness of the soul, and letting God sort of reconstruct and heal the soul. And then once I could let go of a lot of bad doctrine that I had, and to realize that walking in the Spirit is actually a very simple thing. It's not about who can see you in church and what you're doing and how you're doing miracles, or I don't know, depending on what church tradition you're coming from. I don't know if you understand that, but it's walking in the Spirit. That's really what we're called to do. And I think if everyone did that, there's only so much, if people have got evil intent in the world, I think that the power against that is going to be people genuinely walking in the Spirit and embodying the kingdom, which I think is that wholeness of forgiveness, integration, love, accepting the whole of everything, the whole of, whoever it is that you're alienated from finding peace with those things so that you can have peace within, and then you become a carrier of that peace and that well-being. And really, that's what you need to be to the world. It doesn't really matter about all these systems and all their smart cities and all their technology. Their technology is just on a dimension of life, and it's a very limited dimension. And I think, we're going through challenging times, but challenging times are always sharpening times and strengthening times. And I think it's going to push us out of our comfort in our natural identity, in the natural world where we want to just feel safe and no one bothers us there. But I think it's going to help us to push out of that and push into a higher dimension, and to understand our real position of authority and power and peace and love and joy. And that's really all that matters, because you're going to die anyway. Like, dying is not the biggest deal, because that's going to happen to everyone anyway. But how you live, and once you understand that when your body stops functioning, this physical body, it's not the end. There's lots more to come. This is just the beginning. So once you understand that, that the way you live and the way you die is more important than trying to cling on to some sort of safety, some sort of illusion of safety and well-being in a world that is getting clearer and clearer how corrupt it actually is. All right, I've had a little rave. That's probably enough. So yeah. So I'm trying not to post too much controversial posts, I guess, is what I was going to say. And I just want to stick to like thinking about how I can make content to help people to understand this thing that I'm talking about, because I think it's really important, and it's going to be important as we travel through this territory we're going to travel through. And to be able to, embody that peace of God and be that to the world, and that's where the change will happen, whatever change needs to happen. Okay. All right. God bless. Shalom. Good night.